Welcome back, everybody. Dan here. Thanks so much for joining in for this new and much needed video. Sorry for the delay in videos, guys. We've been quite busy here with things going on around the house and stuff like that, but here we are back. This was actually a video I had planned on releasing several months ago, but I just never had the opportunity to finish it, and finally here we are finishing it. So this is going to be a small review for the title Live for Speed in 2019. If you've been following sim racing news and things like that, you may have noticed that here recently, starting about early 2019, and there's been maybe a little bit at the end of 2018 also, but the developers of Live for Speed have been kind of trying to jump back into the game. They've been trying to update their title and get it in a state where it can be compared to these newer rivals that we've got releasing recently, and then the really good titles that we know and love from the last couple of years. But I want to do a review on this because I went back to playing this after a while, and I had honestly forgot how great this sim actually is. A lot of people won't even try it due to a couple of things that I'll point out here in just a few minutes, but I really highly advise anybody who loves sim racing and loves just pure physics and are not really, you don't have to have the best graphics and stuff like that. You really should go back and try Live for Speed, because even if they don't do any more updates to Live for Speed, it is still a exceptional sim racing title. So I wanted to talk a little bit about it. I've been playing it a lot recently, and like I said, I just forgot how great it was. So I wanted to just touch on a few topics here, kind of try to make this short, but you know, spoiler alert, I just think that if you have not tried Live for Speed, you definitely need to go download it. It's fairly cheap, and, you know, it is a little bit older, but it's a great title. You know, hop in there, do some laps, try some of the things that they have available that you can do, because there's a lot more available in Live for Speed than your traditional sim racing titles that we think of today. So let's go ahead and get into these few topics I want to talk about. And I'm going to go ahead and start with the bad. I'm going to go ahead and talk about the elephants in the room. These couple things are going to be what mainly keeps people from trying Live for Speed here in 2019 with all these other games available. The first and foremost thing is going to be the outdated graphics engine. So we have to remember that Live for Speed was originally released in 2003. This game is very old. But, you know, I want to remind you that just because it was released in 2003 and it is very old, it doesn't mean that it's unplayable. It is still very playable, and it is still really good. So if you can get over this outdated graphics engine, you know, you really will have an enjoyable time playing this game. And then the second thing that is another elephant in the room, that like 95% of the vehicles that are developer based or built by the team behind Live for Speed, they are all fictional cars and tracks. So, you know, it's a very small team that is behind Live for Speed. It always has been, and that's kind of the same reason why it's taken them so long to kind of get back into this and try to push the sim again. But because they're such a small team, they just don't have a huge budget for huge licensing like many of these big Kunos, you know, Turn 10, people like that have these huge budgets to really you know, push these real cars and stuff like that. So because of that, most of the cars, there are a few race cars, I do believe, like I think maybe a Honda a Formula car or something like that, but most of the cars are actually going to be fictional, but they are still really good cars and great cars to drive. So let's get that stuff out of the way. Let's get right over to the good now. Here's where I want to start talking about why I do think if you've never tried it out, or if it's been a super long time since you've played it, you need to hop back in this sim. So, to say that the outdated graphics is not good would be true, but the thing about that is because it's an older game and it's an older graphics engine, it was built for far less superior PCs, meaning that pretty much any PC now that you have, if you have a PC that was built in the last 5 years, maybe even further than that, it's gonna run Live for Speed flawlessly at ridiculously high frame rates because it doesn't take a whole lot to run it. So it's super easy on tune your graphics system. It's super easy on your graphics card. So if you're having trouble running some of the other titles of today, these really titles that take a really big hit on your performance and your graphics card, definitely try Live for Speed because it's going to be much easier on your graphics card. The other thing, another point I want to point out is going to be talking about the cars here. I know that I said that the cars were fictional. However, because the cars are fictional, they were able to design cars and build the physics on feel, not data. So a big problem with a lot of the sims is they're fed data from these manufacturers of vehicles, and they have to match that data. And sometimes what I find is when you match that data, it makes this sim version of that vehicle maybe not feel as realistic as it actually should. So being that the cars are fictional in Live for Speed, that means that they can tune them and tweak them to a vehicle that feels good to drive, which is huge, 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 huge. And same thing here with the tracks. The tracks are going to be fictional as well as the cars, but because of that, you get super amazing just tracks with excellent flow and are really, really good to drive. And I think it actually gives those developers, or gave the developers an opportunity to make these really, really excellent tracks. So just because there's not a name track on the game doesn't mean they're not good. I mean, it actually is a positive in my eyes. Let's talk about the next thing here. So the physics. The physics are fantastic. I would say they are very closely related to R Factor 2. It feels very, very similar to R Factor 2. So if you are a huge fan of R Factor 2, you're going to love Live for Speed. And then the second thing I kind of want to point out on the physics side is that every car feels different. Every type of vehicle feels different. Many sims today have many different types and styles of cars, yet they still feel very similar to each other. But that is not the case with Live for Speed. You can definitely tell when you hop out of one vehicle into the next, and that's really good. I want to talk about force feedback really quick. It is absolutely well done. It's not going to be over the top, cutting edge like some of the stuff that we have today, but it gives you exactly what you need to do, what you need to know exactly what your car is doing. And that goes for the front wheel drives, rear wheel drives, all wheel drives. They all feel completely different, as I said before, and you can feel exactly what the cars are doing coming through your force feedback. So that is an incredible thing that they have going on for this title. The one negative that I would point out about the force feedback is there's not a whole lot of adjustment. Back then, these titles didn't have a lot of adjustment. As a matter of fact, I think when this title came out, it was almost cutting edge with the adjustment it did have, because it allowed you to have, to change the strength of the force feedback, where a lot of other titles didn't even have that. But as far as the force feedback adjustments, you're just going to be able to basically turn the strength up or down, and that's about it. I have a feeling, though, as the developers continue to update this game, they will make some adjustments and add in some tweaks for that. I want to talk very quickly here about the open wheelers. The open wheelers, I would put money on that the open wheelers in this sim are some of the best, if not better than any other sim I have raced. Typically, I'm not a huge fan of open wheelers. I stay away from them. I never really get a good feel for open wheelers and stuff like that. But in this sim, they're excellent. I find myself just racing for hours and hours in these open wheelers, which is really unusual, as I typically can't do more than a couple laps in pretty much any other sim before I kind of get bored and want to move along to the next thing. But I'll tell you what, in this title, that is not the case. The open wheelers are fantastic. And the last thing I want to touch on really quick, as far as the really good stuff about it, is the AI performance. It is pretty good. It's not perfect, but it is pretty good. There is enough there that these guys will give you an excellent race, very competitive, and I kind of almost would relate to them as the Forza drivatars, because at times the AI will be a little sporadic, and it will give you these situations where it's almost like a real driver, because you're not thinking that what is about to happen would happen. It kind of adds an extra little challenge, like somebody might swerve in front of you or whatever and make their way back, or corner not exactly on the line, where a lot of sims, the AI just will corner at the same exact spot, drive the same line, same braking points and all that stuff. These guys are more sporadic, which could be looked at as a good thing or a bad thing. To me, I look at it as a pretty good thing, because it makes it more enjoyable, a little more tricky to race, and just overall it makes for really, really fun racing. So I think that, again, guys, if you have not given this title a try in a long time, again, this is, you know, look at this game in 2019, so surely there are tons of other sims out there that are newer, look shinier, look prettier, but I'm telling you what, for the price that you pay for Live for Speed, you get an exceptional situation. And the last thing I wanted to just mention is that it's not all about racing here. I'm not a big drifter, but there's a huge backing in this game for drifting. So if you like drifting, there's a ton of mod cars that you can go out and purchase to drift. Also, they have quite a few autocross courses, which I think is really, really fun. That's something I love to do in real life. So the fact that it's legitimately been put in a sim is really cool. They have several different autocross courses that you can go into and set up the cones and things like that. So it's a lot of fun. It's just different than just straight up racing over and over again. But as I said, guys, you definitely should check this title out. It is really fun, even though it is so old, and I think you'd be pleasantly surprised if you've never played it before. The UI is a little clunky. It's a little slow. You have to remember this is an old game, but if you just work your way through the UI and get going out on track, you're going to have an excellent time. So thanks so much for watching, guys. As always, I appreciate you checking out these videos. If you're not subscribed, please click that subscribe button, hit that bell, so you'll be ready to hear whenever we have new videos coming out. As always, guys, thanks so much, and I'll talk to you in the next video.